He doesn't feign laughter nor play nice. If you're disrespected by Eddie Murphy, you know. After stating your name, business is done. No punchline, no backing down. He's not the loudest, but the most perceptive. If you're branded corny by Eddie, your act is over. People no longer laugh, doors close. Delirious. Raw. Saturday Night Live. The Nutty Professor. Eddie pioneered humor. He made it intimate, familiar with the phony from the funny. If one tried riding an attempted ride on his wave, the mic was switched off. No threat, no smile. He doesn't blow up nor rant. He leaves one sentence that will echo over centuries. He's worked with the biggest, but some he avoided. No partnership, no honor, no second chances. They weren't only unfunny, they were forgetful. The following are 6 comedians Eddie Murphy didn't enjoy working with, and why they were dropped for good. David Spade is one. There are comedians that crossed the line, and Spade never recovered from his. It was one quick one-liner that hit hard for Eddie as it was from SNL, his former home. It was not any one-liner. It struck Gary's legacy. Spade hosted the Hollywood Minute from the Saturday Night Live in the mid-90s. Raising up the photo of Eddie Murphy, the one-liner was, "Look, kid's a falling star." The crowd went wild, but not Eddie. It wasn't shade, it was an open undercut. His movies were declining. And from SNL, from the one where he rose where he had risen, it felt personal. In interviews, Eddie described the bit as mean-spirited, noting that the sting was worse coming from the walls that he built. He told Lorne Michaels that he wouldn't return while Spade was on the show, and he didn't for generations. This was thicker than celebrity beef. This was betrayal to Eddie. It wasn't even a joke, but an open dismissal of what he had done. The kid from SNL was the punchline. Years passed, careers changed, but Eddie remembered. Spade tried to defuse the situation, positing that this was all just good comedy nerdery, and the nature of the piece was to take shots. Regardless, though, Eddie repeated that a joke is not an insult. That was not humor. This was lazy. And that sentence remained mute but permanent. There was no exposure by Eddie to Spade by headline, nor any crusade. There was only deletion. No joint ventures, invitations, nor mentions, only silence, speaking loudly. Eddie didn't want retribution. He wanted mileage. His response was the withdrawal of respect and the shutting of the door. The ultimate punchline? David Spade went on to work, but never shared the frame with Eddie. No sketches, films, or handshakes. In Eddie's world, true colors mean no second chances. "I built that house," he said of SNL. "They don't get to tear it down while I'm watching." No war, but also no warmth. A 5-second joke turned into a decade-long chill, and Eddie moved on. Number 2, Bill Cosby. This wasn't the problem of a bad joke, but judgment. Anxiety existed preceding the breakdown of Cosby's legacy, starting behind the scenes. The 1980s had an untouchable Eddie with sold-out crowds by sold-out crowds and platinum-selling side-splitting albums. Success attracts critics, including Cosby, to chastise Eddie over the vocabulary and material. Eddie heard, but never forgot. He said, "I was too dirty," said Eddie. Like he was my dad or something. To Eddie, this was control from an old-school comedian trying to make him. So he fought back on stage. In Raw, there was that private call pubic mockery by mocking Cosby's voice. The crowd went wild, with the power shifted. Then, the twist. When Pryor was informed by Eddie of the call, Pryor's answer was the classic response. "Tell Bill to have a Coke and shut up." It was an unmistakable vote of confidence for Eddie, whom Pryor never forgot. Cosby, meanwhile, continued throwing shades, casting blame on comedians for lowering the bar, but not naming names. Years went by. Then, during the 2015 ceremony for the Mark Twain Prize, he spoke the name Cosby for the first time. "I would love to talk about Bill, but I'd probably get sued or drugged." The crowd went wild, but the look on Eddie's face was deadpan. No smile, no explanatory follow-up. That was what made the moment powerful. It was delicate but defined, a one-liner following all the years of silence. There was never any need for the feud, nor any retaliation fought by Eddie. Only the need to wait. When the moment presented itself, only the reality echoed. There was no friendship, only branchings off from one generation to the other of the art of comedy. There was no trying by Eddie to attempt to take over from Cosby. Only by him the establishment of an own legacy. Now, nobody messes them up. Number 3, Howard Stern. Some feuds are news big time. This one said nothing. By the early 2000s, Eddie Murphy had put distance between himself. No stand-up, only films and family. The buzz carried name, Howard Stern. Stern had been mocking celebrities for years, but with Eddie, the insults were on the personal level. He poked fun at the career and the family. Eddie? Volcano. No response, only silence. Stern continued for over a decade while Eddie maintained his distance. Then came 2019. Howard Stern published a new book, the softer version, Howard, Apology to Most, but not to Eddie. That silence was deafening. Eddie spoke up during an extremely rare interview when Stern was brought up. His tone was steady, but he said he would come after me hard. Never said anything, but saw it. The host posited whether Eddie took Stern's public apology. He said, "You don't have to apologize if you were never sorry." That stung. That wasn't a comeback. That was reminder. Memory is key. Eddie had taken the jokes and the shading quietly, but silence never equaled forgiveness. Later, Stern subtly said something about Eddie, respecting him, but not even that got an answer from him. "I don't hold grudges," said Eddie, "but I do take notes." That's the end of story. That wasn't ego nor vengeance. That was respect. That boundary was crossed. The path was taken by Eddie to literally leave. That's it. Never the drama, but the two men walking on different paths. One never backward facing. Never was the door slammed by Eddie on Stern. However, the door was simply kept closed. Number 4, Richard Pryor. This was harder than hate. As much as Eddie Murphy was trying to look at him perform the first time around, he was running from the ghost. Pryor was the king, the blueprint, the voice, the truth, and Eddie absorbed it all. "I watched his albums over and over," said Eddie. "He was everything." Admiration is a double-edged sword. The closer Eddie got to stardom, comparisons multiplied. Some said the next Pryor. Some said he was impersonating. Pryor didn't like it. From Paul Mooney, Pryor's friend, came tension. Too Hollywood. Too much personality over reality. The source was ego. The product was bitterness. The atmosphere shifted. Eddie never replied in public, but wasn't absent. Sometimes the hero resists sharing the floor. Even from a distance, Eddie paid Pryor respect, declaring him the greatest, giving him credit for influence. There was still room. Not close, not far. There was tension. Then something shifted. In 1998, Pryor won the first Mark Twain Prize for American Humor, and the honor was bestowed to give speech but rejected, letting silence speak volumes. Years later, when the honor went to the one they call Mr. Murphy, Pryor was thanked by name. "There's only one Richard. I was lucky to march behind him, though he never looked around." That was not bitterness, but clarity. Pryor had felt the pain of inspiration without inclusion. He never set out to upstage Pryor, but simply stopped waiting for permission. Eddie does not march on arguments, but walks out. He came out from the shadow, found out the light, and moved on. There was no fight, only two giants on both sides of silence. Number 5, Paul Mooney. Some rivalries ignite quick. This one did. Mooney was the king of legendhood of comedies. Quick, raw, and bold to call out names. He was the Richard Pryor penman, lived under the shadow of greatness, and forged his own path. His reverence for Eddie Murphy wasn't mutual. It all originated from Pryor. Mooney defended that name. When Pryor's next manifestation was Eddie, Mooney had issue. In interviews, Mooney subtly threw pokes at Eddie on the issue of style and presentation, always acting as if it was all about him. Eddie was funny, Hollywood funny, he said. But Pryor was raw. The sentiment rang within the circle of comedians, as Mooney had issue with the idea that Eddie was commercial and secure. Years later, when Mooney was aggressive, Eddie fired back. Speaking on respecting Mooney's name, he paused before proclaiming, "He made people laugh, just not me." That was all a cold, dismissive statement. Eddie didn't need to deliberate with Mooney's vibe nor compete with talent. He simply made the point they never took the same path. Mooney didn't stop. He subsequently accused Eddie of lifting pieces from his set, claiming that Eddie pilfered rhythms, phrases, and one-liners. There was no proof, only tension. Eddie didn't take the bait. He kept on winning. "You don't have to answer everyone," said Eddie one day, least of all when the crowd already answered. That was all. Mooney had the stage, but the rest was out. Outworld. There is no report of them working together. No picture, no quotation, no tribute. Only two men on opposite sides of a legacy, not wishing to pass each other. Cat Williams does not cage wrestle. He does body slams. That kind of action fast makes you an enemy. When Cat went after the great Eddie Murphy, that was bold, that was smart. Cat earned the name Fearless by targeting the industry that is Hollywood and taking big names down, the ultimate one belonging to Eddie. The first jab was subdued. The comment was made that comedians used to be funny, and rattling off the name of the great Eddie Murphy. The crowd clapped and laughed, but the point was made. The silence out of the punchline was from Eddie. Nevertheless, Cat didn't cease. Years later on the radio, Cat wondered why the silence from Eddie, why the stand-up abandonment, proclaiming the movie safe, the worse. He stated that Eddie wasn't even in the top 5. He was the king, you know what I'm saying? Said Cat. But the industry passed him by. The words went viral, making headlines and Twitterverse. Even with all the attention, silent was the reaction from Eddie. No interviews, no tweeting. Silence is not victory. Eddie's response was brief. After someone mentioned what Cat had said, he laughed and said, "Everybody's got a mic now. Doesn't mean they're saying something." He waits for noise to die down before making an accurate point. Meanwhile, Cat went on ranting, making sarcastic remarks over the legacy of Eddie and how he had lost his sting. It was loud, but not disruptive. He said, "When you've already been on the top, you don't run after people trying to reach up." That addressed the point that he doesn't need to come to the defense of his legacy. There is already something proven by Eddie on stage, the big screen even over silence. Cat is louder these days, but this is the yardstick by which everyone measures. That is what stings, no big scene, but one man landing punches while the other keeps out. Eddie Murphy never yelped, raised his voice, or chased headlines. He simply recalled what was said by whom. Some comedians received their silence, but these 6 received the way out. One sentence, one look, and Eddie never returned. The moment trust was crossed, laughs were stopped, and you were erased from the plot. Whose name almost appeared on this list, but wasn't? Let us know in the comments. For deep cuts, early seasons, and raw storylines, join the vault. It's the ones only. In the universe of one's only Eddie Murphy, all was never about the limelight. All was the one who never deserved the second scene.